In this lecture, I am talking about Samuel Johnson. He was the greatest Englishman of letters between Pope and Wordsworth. He was born at Lichfield in 1709. His father was a bookseller, and from his father he inherited his huge and wildly unhealthy frame and that vile melancholy of disposition which was to throw a gloom over so much of his life. The elder Johnson, father of Samuel Johnson, died on the verge of bankruptcy. Samuel, he acted as for a time as a school uh, uh, teacher, did some translation for a Birmingham publisher. He married a widow who was 20 years senior, and he sunk all her little money that she brought for him in a futile attempt to establish a school of his own, and then he tried to resolve his fortune in London. He reached the metropolis in 1737. He was born in 1709 and he reached London in 1737 with the two pence half penny in his pocket, and with him his friend, his late pupil Stephen Garrick, the greatest actor of his time. In 1738, he published a poem called London. 1738, he reached London in 1737, and he published a poem in 1738, which was called London, and formed a connection with Cave's magazine, to which for a number of years he regularly contributed the parliamentary reports. Though he himself was never in the gallery of the house, and he created his notes upon the works of others. Amid much salonous drudgery during the next few years, he produced The Vanity of Human Wishes, 1749, almost 10 years later, and a tragedy, Irene, 1749, on the neoclassical model, and March 1750 started a periodical, The Rambler, in imitation of The Spectator. It means The Spectator was started in March 1750 by Samuel Johnson, which appeared on Tuesday and Saturdays till March 1752. Tuesday and Saturdays, all save 5 numbers being from his pen. This was followed later by 2 other series, The Adventurer and The Idler. Meanwhile, he was occupied for 8 years, it means 1747 to 1755, by an immense task, a dictionary of the English language, in which he undertook not only to define but also to illustrate his definition by quotation taken from the whole range of English literature. Though weak in etymology and philosophy, this work laid the foundation of the English lexicography. Johnson's magnificent letter to Lord Chesterfield, to whom he had addressed his prospectus, and who neglected him entirely till his labours were near completion, dealt the death blow to the whole 18th century system of patronage. His patron was Lord Chesterfield. The dictionary made him independent. He received a pension of 300 a year, I don't know dollar or what. His struggles and anxieties were over after publication of this work. After pension that he got from by the publication of this work, he now became the acknowledged dictator, or as a Smollett called him the great charm of literature. Who is called the great charm of the literature? It is Samuel Johnson by Smollett. And Night by Night, in the famous club formed by him in 1764, started The Spectator in 17 Rambler in 1750. In 1764 started a famous club in 1764, in which is surrounded by such men as Goldsmith, Sir Joshua Reynolds, Gibbon, Sir William Jones, Garrick, Burke, Boswell, and all these famous men of his time. He published his didactic tale Rascals in 1759, an edition of Shakespeare in 1765, an account of his tour to the Hebrides with Boswell under the title of The Journey to the Western Islands of Scotland in 1775, and his largest or also his greatest work, The Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets and Critical Observation on Their Works in 1779 to 81, and he died in 1784 and was buried in Westminster Abbey.